Hi, I'm Anna and welcome back to my channel. This is my third episode technically of starting my writing journey this year in 2022 and trying to get back into writing, which I loved when I was younger. So today we are going to be plotting my novel, and I am terrified to be doing this because when I was very younger, I was definitely a plotter. And then I went through a phase where I clearly believed I was a pantser, and now I clearly know I am more of a plotter, but I'm kind of in the middle. If you've never heard of what a plotter and a pantser is, basically, a plotter is the type of writer who needs to know a lot of the details before starting the book, whereas a pantser kind of goes off the seat of their pants and just jumps into the plot and just goes where the story leads them, as opposed to like plotting and outlining and things like that. And I never really thought of myself as a plotter, but now looking back, I feel like I definitely am. Once I was 17 or 18, I was almost exactly a pantser, and I did not finish many books because of that. So when I was very little, and I'm talking like 11 or younger, I used to always write an outline out for the chapters of my book. Now, that may have not stayed that way as I was writing it. Usually I said, no, I need to like scrap these later chapters because this plot line isn't working and I need to like revamp it. But it really helped me like stay focused. However, then I became a pantser and I found myself really struggling to finish books. So I'm hoping that by trying to be more of a plotter and trying different techniques to help me plot this novel I'm writing, it will help me to actually finish this book. This was a very long intro, but basically, for this novel, I want to try using the 3 acts, 15 beats sheet from Save the Cat Writes a Novel. I read this book a couple years ago, and it was originally based off of screenplays on how to like teach screenwriters to write screenplays, and then this book was adapted by Jessica Brody as a book. So basically Brody goes into these 3 acts, 15 beats format that every single book can be fit into. And the first half of the book, where I have most of my sticky notes, if you noticed, outlines this way of writing, and then the second half focuses more on types of stories that fit into this. I, for example, am writing the Golden Fleece genre, which is basically for road trips and group adventures, but there are a lot of different other trope stories and genres that can fit into this 3 acts, 15 beats. So first, let's go over exactly what the 3 acts, 15 beats are, and then I'm going to get into my story and how I'm hoping to break it up. Act 1. We have the opening image, the before snapshot of your hero and the world. This would be, for example, in Harry Potter, you see Harry living with the Dursleys. That's the before snapshot. Then you have the theme stated, a statement made by a character, typically not a hero, that hints at what the hero's arc will be. That is what the hero must learn/discover before the end of the book. Also referred to as a life lesson. This is interesting because I've never thought to include like a life lesson in my books. Usually it's much more focused on plot, and yes, there's usually a character arc, but I don't really think about it early on to be hinted at. So this is an interesting additive. Beat 3 is the setup, an exploration of the hero's status quo life and all its flaws, where we learn what the hero's life looks like before its epic transformation. So this is similar to the opening image, personally, for me. But instead of being, that single scene of Harry Potter waking up in the morning, and I don't remember actually how it starts. It's Dursley's birthday, Harry wakes up, goes and makes breakfast. Like, that's the before snapshot, but then you have the whole scenes of him with his aunt and uncle, the birthday, and then the incident with the snake. That would be the setup, I guess. And then you have the hint of Harry having magic. I'm using Harry Potter because I feel like most people have either seen the movie or read the book, so at least you know the general plot of the first book. So number 4 is the catalyst, an inciting incident or life-changing event that happens to the hero, which will catapult them into a new world or a new way of thinking. This is obviously when Hagrid shows up in front of Harry and is like, "You're a wizard, Harry." And then number 5 is the debate, reaction sequence in which the hero debates what they would do next. This is Harry's decision on whether he should stay with the Dursleys or go with Hagrid. And of course, he decides to go with Hagrid because who wouldn't want to be a wizard? All right, and then number 6 is the beginning of Act 2. So Act 1 is basically the setup and the catalyst that prompts us into the rest of the book. And then you have Act 2, which is most of the book, honestly. It's about 50% of the book, whereas the Act 1 is about 25% and Act 3 is about 25%. So Act 2 is break into 2, is the 6th beat. The moment the hero decides to accept the call to action, leave their comfort zone, try something new, or venture into a new world or new way of thinking. So it's action. Break into 2. That makes sense. Number 7 is the B story, the introduction of a new character or characters who will ultimately serve to help the hero learn the theme. In Harry Potter, this would be the example where Harry meets Ron on the train to Hogwarts. Ron and Hermione, and starts to make friends. There's a lot of different characters that are introduced in that little snippet. We have Draco being introduced. So number 8 is fun and games. This is where we see the hero in their new world. They are either loving it or hating it, succeeding or floundering. So this would be Harry going to all his classes. You see him both floundering and succeeding. And that is one of the biggest sections of the book because that is an entire 30% of the book, which is a lot. And then you have number 9, which is the midpoint. And that is literally the middle of the novel, where the fun and game culminates in either a false victory, the hero thus far been succeeding, or a false defeat. The hero has thus far been floundering. I'm trying to think of when in Harry Potter this might take place, but I can't think of it necessarily. But then you have 10 is the bad guys close in, and this is 25% of the book. So again, this is a pretty big part of the book. If the midpoint was a false victory, this section will be a downward path where things get progressively worse for the hero. If the midpoint was a false defeat, this section will be an upward path where things seem to get progressively better for the hero. But regardless of the path, the hero's deep-rooted flaws or internal bad guys are closing in. All right. And this will probably be either Harry and Ron and Hermione suspecting Snape, or I'm not sure what it would be, but yeah. And then number 11 is All is Lost, the lowest point of the novel, an action beat where something happens to the hero that, combined with the internal bad guys, pushes the hero to rock bottom. This is where it feels like there's no way to succeed. And then this one goes very close along with it, and that is 12, Dark Night of the Soul. This is a reaction beat where the hero takes time to process everything that has happened thus far. And then you break into Act 3. So we're almost done. Number 13 is break into 3, the aha moment. The hero realizes that what they must do to not only fix all the problems created in Act 2, but more important, fix themselves. The arc is nearly complete. This is when Harry, Ron, and Hermione decide, well, we have to break into the chambers where the Sorcerer's Stone is being kept to try to protect it from Snape, basically. And that then we have number 14, the finale. The hero proves they have truly learned the theme and enacts the plan they came up with in the break intro into 3. And then the final one is number 15, Final Image, a mirror of the opening image. This is the after snapshot of who the hero is after going through this epic and satisfying transformation. All right, so there we have all our main beats, the 15 main beats. And I have this for my book written down. So we're going to go through and we're going to talk about my beats but I'm not going to give too many details because this is spoilers for my book. And so I'm going to keep things rather vague. I've mentioned to you guys that this story is set in 1931 China, and it's half fantasy, half mystery adventure. So basically, it has kind of two contrasting settings. You have the winter in the mountains in this rural China, and then you have Shanghai, which is very international and very modern. So my opening image is to contrast those two. So I already know my opening image is going to be following two characters. So I'm going to be having the chapter, either one chapter or two chapter, broken up into two different parts that show that opening image to contrast how different it is in rural China versus in this international city like Shanghai. So that's my opening image. And then themes stated, I haven't fully thought about, but one of my main themes that I am examining in this book is the idea of fate or destiny. That I don't personally believe in fate or destiny in the same way in real life. I definitely think things happen and often happen for a reason that is unexplainable to us humans. However, I'm not going to say that, like, you can definitely say, yes, fate is a thing. However, after reading Herodotus, it's really interesting to see, like, what purpose fate plays, our fate, and how we need to accept our fate in order to be happy in life. So that's the main theme that I'm examining in this book, which will be stated by one of the characters. One of my characters I have, he is very interested in old Chinese tradition. He even wears traditional Chinese garb, whereas pretty much everyone else wears modern, more Western garb. So that's going to be that. And then the setup is mostly showing the team that is being put together by one of my two main characters. And they are going to go investigate these strange happenings in this rural mountain area of China. So that's basically the setup. After the opening image and the theme stated, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just set up a little bit of what these two worlds are like in rural China as well as in Shanghai. What life is like. There's a lot of historical details I can get into in this section. I don't know quite how detailed I can be because there were quite a lot to balance, especially in Shanghai. Because in rural China, life was much more simple back then, but in Shanghai especially, you had foreign influence, you had a Japanese, you also had the nationalists with Chiang Kai-shek, as well as the communists with Mao Zedong, who were conflicting. So basically, I'm going to have to be balancing a bunch of things. There's also like the opium epidemic that was going on. There's also like warlords that are coming into power in different parts of China, not necessarily Shanghai. So there's a lot that I need to introduce in these like couple chapters. So we'll see how much I can introduce. And then the catalyst. This is going to be a twofold catalyst because, again, I'm following two stories, one in rural China and one in Shanghai. So on one hand, I have this mission giving to the leader of this group to go investigate what's going on in rural China. But then you also have in rural China, my main character who's going to be there. She is going to be needing aid for protection of her village for reasons. And then you have debate. Obviously, both of them are going to go, but on an adventure in different ways, and they're going to eventually meet up. So now we break into two. And this is where both their journey starts kind of towards each other. The team is put together on this side in Shanghai. And then you have my main character here setting out alone on her adventure. So then you have the B story. This is going to be where we're really focusing on the friendships and conflicts between this group. This is also where I'm going to have the two groups meet up. It's going to be something's happening. So I'm trying to be distinctly vague, guys, and I'm really struggling with it. Then you have fun and games. This is going to be a big part of the book, but it's going to focus more on the characters struggling, and mostly this is going to be at first a downhill slope. So This is going to be where a lot of the characters are struggling. Maybe it is because of interpersonal relationships within the group, or it may be because of outward interference. There's a lot going on there. But then you have the midpoint. This is going to be a false defeat. I'm not going to get more into the details, but they're going to get attacked and hurt and learn some new twist. Not going to, say anything, but they're all going to learn from it, all the characters. And then you have the bad guys closing in. This is where, since the midpoint is a false defeat, this is where the plot actually goes up. They start actually working together at this point instead of just constantly conflicting all the time. But then they get back to the village that the main girl from rural China comes from, and they discover something horrific. So then, of course, they are just sitting saying, well, we failed our mission. Everything is lost. There's no hope anymore. That is the darkest night of the soul. And then break into 3. We have the aha moment. This is where one of the characters, and I haven't figured out the details of this quite yet because I'm still working on this, they come to a conclusion about how to fix things, how to make things better, how to save the world in a sense. So then you have the finale, which of course leads this group to working together. They finally are on the same page. They're finally seeking the same goal. And not only that, but they also have a goal that they know they can achieve, and they win the day. And yay, that is how the story ends. And then you have that final image contrasting them together, and the story ends with them all, including the girl from the rural area, returning towards Shanghai, and that's how the story ends. So there's my plot. We'll see how I like this 15 beat type thing. It was interesting because there were some beats that obviously I know exist and that make sense to me, like that opening image, the setup, the midpoint, and then the lowest point in the novel, things like that. I've known that those exist, but I didn't necessarily, I wasn't necessarily able to vocalize how it all worked together. So this is a really fascinating book. It's a really interesting way to concoct a story, especially since as of when you are seeing this, this will be a couple weeks into, actually 3 weeks into January. And I will have already started writing this book. Right now, it is still December, so I am pre-filming all these videos as I'm doing the planning process of my book, because I wanted to do a lot before the year started, so I wouldn't be on January 1st saying, well, where do I start with this book? I'm completely confused on how to start it. So let me know if you are an author, if you've ever tried to use Save the Cat Writes a Novel, if you've used the 3-act 15-beat organization for your book, if you think it's good, bad, and if you haven't used it, even if you are a reader, are you able to think of a book as I was going through all the beats and say, oh, yeah, a lot of my favorite books actually hit all these beats. It was really fascinating to me too when I was reading this book and trying to think of my own story, saying, yeah, the majority of books I read hit these beats, and I never even realized it. So we'll see if this type of outlining actually helps me in writing this book, or if it's a detriment and I really don't enjoy it. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video of me rambling, subscribe. I post every Saturday and Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern time, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great week. Bye.